Archaeologists spend their whole lives trying to understand the past. Most of what they uncover helps piece together our human history. It helps build a clearer picture of the world that came before. But not everything they discover always makes sense. Sometimes the things they find don't just explain the past. They changed what we thought we knew. And in this video, you're going to see exactly that. Ancient discoveries that will blow your mind. So, ready to be amazed? Well, let's dive in. Number 15. The Narmer Palette. Not every ancient object carries the weight of an entire nation's beginning, but this one does. It is called the Narmer Palette, and we don't have any idea who named it. This thing was found in the late 19th century and is often linked to the moment Egypt became unified under one ruler. It's not big, but every inch of it feels deliberate. On its surface, there are scenes of King Narmer, shown wearing two different crowns, one representing Upper Egypt, the other Lower. That dual imagery isn't decorative. It suggests control over both lands. Some see it as a historical record, and others think it's symbolic, meant to reinforce power rather than document it. No matter what they think, it's one of the earliest known depictions of a ruler, which alone makes it extraordinary. The hieroglyphs etched into it are among the oldest ever found, sitting right at the edge of when writing itself was beginning to take shape. Whether it marks a victory or a unification, it captures a sharp turning point, one that shaped everything that followed in ancient Egyptian history. Number 14. The mysterious moon-eyed people legends have a way of lingering, and especially when they don't fit neatly into known history. Among certain Native American traditions, particularly those linked to the Cherokee, there are stories of a group described as pale-skinned and sensitive to daylight. These so-called moon-eyed people were said to avoid sunlight, appearing mostly at night, and living in the region long before European arrival. Some accounts describe interactions, even conflict, eventually leading to their disappearance. Attempts to explain these stories have taken different directions. One suggestion points toward albinism, referencing historical reports of similar individuals observed in Central America. Others propose connections to earlier cultures, but evidence remains thin. What keeps the story alive is the consistency across oral traditions. It wasn't recorded once and forgotten, and it was passed down. Whether rooted in actual reality or shaped by storytellers, it leaves behind a question that hasn't fully settled, sitting quietly between myth and possibility. Number 13. The Mesolithic carved reindeer antler. Well, sure, it doesn't look like much at first, just a piece of antler with a pattern carved into it. But that simplicity is what makes it intriguing. This 8,800-year-old object raises a question that reaches far beyond its size. The antler itself couldn't have come from that region at the time. Reindeer lived much farther north, which means it had to travel, either carried by someone or exchanged through trade. That alone suggests connections between distant groups far earlier than many historians once believed. The carvings add another layer. Carefully arranged triangles cover its surface, not random, and not careless. Someone took time with this. Whether it was decorative, symbolic, or something more practical isn't clear. But it wasn't meaningless. Objects like this hint at movement, communication, and interaction between people who lived in a world we often imagine as isolated. Turns out, it may not have been so disconnected after all. Number 12. The Babylonian tablet that tracked Jupiter. Ancient Babylon is usually remembered for its early achievements, but this small clay tablet suggests something far more advanced than most would expect. At first sight, when you look at it, it's covered in cuneiform writing like many others. But a closer look reveals something weird. Mathematical calculations tied to the movement of Jupiter. We mean not simple observations, but geometric methods that track its path across the sky. And that's what changes everything. For a long time, it was believed that this level of astronomical understanding didn't emerge until medieval Europe. But this tablet predates that by more than 1,000 years. It shows a clear relationship between time, distance, and velocity, concepts that feel strikingly modern. Whoever created it wasn't guessing, they were calculating. That realization shifts the timeline of scientific thought in a quiet but significant way. It suggests that knowledge didn't always move forward in a straight line. Sometimes it appears early, fades, and then re-emerges years or centuries later. Number 11. The giant wooden haniwa. Among the burial mounds of ancient Japan, clay figures known as haniwa are a familiar sight. They marked sacred ground, standing as silent guardians around tombs reserved for the elite. Most are modest in size, shaped from terracotta, and placed with a clear purpose. But this one breaks that pattern entirely. Standing over 11 feet tall and carved from wood, it immediately stands apart. Its sheer scale suggests it wasn't just symbolic, it was meant to be noticed. The material choice adds another layer. Wood doesn't preserve easily over long periods, which makes its survival remarkable. It also hints at status. The type of timber used was associated with power, suggesting the individual buried nearby held significant influence. Despite that, no name has been recovered, nor has a clear identity been tied to the site. The figure remains what it has always been, a presence without a voice, marking a grave whose story has largely faded with time. Number 10. The Khufu statuette. And among all the grand monuments tied to Pharaoh Khufu, it's almost ironic that the only surviving three-dimensional likeness of him is so small. This ivory figurine, discovered in Abydos in the early 1900s, barely fits in the palm of a hand. But trust us, its value far outweighs its size. Khufu, who was the ruler behind the Great Pyramid, left behind structures that dominate the landscape, but almost no personal representations. That's what makes this piece feel so crucial. Still, certainty slips away the closer you look. There's an ongoing debate about when it was actually carved. It might date back to his lifetime, or it could have been created generations later as part of a cult honoring his legacy. Without a clear timeline, even its accuracy is questioned. Does it truly reflect his appearance? Or is it a symbolic version shaped by memory? Well, either way, this small object carries the weight of a figure whose presence still towers over history. Number 9. The Christian monastery on Al-Sinai Island. Well, it's easy to assume certain regions have always followed the same beliefs, but discoveries like this tell a different story. On Al-Sinai Island in the United Arab Emirates, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a Christian monastery dating back to the 6th or 7th century. That alone shifts expectations. Long before Islam became dominant in the region, communities practicing Christianity were already established there. The structure itself is modest, yet its presence carries weight. Evidence suggests it continued to function even after the rise of Islam, indicating a period where different beliefs coexisted rather than immediately replacing one another. That overlap is rarely discussed but important. It shows transitions weren't always abrupt. The monastery doesn't rewrite history, but it adds depth to it, filling in details often overlooked. Today, only fragments remain, yet those fragments quietly confirm that cultural and religious landscapes were far more layered than they sometimes appear from a distance. Number 8. The Arabian Stonehenge Monument. Now, most people usually hear Stonehenge and picture England, not a quiet stretch of land in Oman. But out there, in the southern region, there's a cluster of carefully arranged stones that form what many call the Arabian Stonehenge, and it's not just a catchy name. And the structure includes trilith formations, two upright stones holding a third across the top, placed with clear intent, not chance. Dating back roughly 2,000 years, It belongs to a time when this now dry landscape was far more alive, with water sources and signs of thriving life. That detail alone raises questions. Why build something like this here? And more importantly, for what purpose? Some believe it had ritual meaning. Others suggest it tracked the sky. Still, nothing has been proven. The stones feel deliberate, almost calculated, yet the reason behind them stays just out of reach. It stands there quietly, offering a shape we recognize, but a meaning we don't. Number 7. The bog body from Stenløse bogs have a strange way of preserving the past, holding on to what should have disappeared long ago. In Denmark, one such place revealed the remains of a person who died around 5,000 years ago. What's left isn't complete, just fragments of bone, but the context tells a clearer story. This wasn't an accident. Evidence points toward deliberate sacrifice, a practice known to have existed in the region during the Neolithic period. The body was placed in the bog along with objects, including a flint axe that appears unused, suggesting it was part of the ritual rather than a tool of daily life. These wetlands weren't just natural features. They were spaces where offerings were made, where something was given up, perhaps in exchange for favor or protection. Even after thousands of years, that intention remains visible. The person behind the remains is unknown, but the act itself feels deliberate, carried out with a purpose that no longer has a voice. To number 6, the ancient Maya ball game scoreboard stone. This ancient circular stone has added another piece to the Chichen Itza story. This artifact, believed to be around 1,200 years old, features carved figures and hieroglyphic text linked to the ancient Maya ball game. The game itself wasn't just a sport. It carried ritual significance, often tied to belief systems that went beyond competition. That context makes this stone more than decoration. It may have served as a scoreboard or marker, recording events or outcomes tied to these matches. The figures depicted wear elaborate headgear, suggesting status or importance. What makes the find particularly valuable is the presence of readable inscriptions, something not always preserved in full. Each symbol adds to the understanding of a practice that blends physical skill with deeper meaning. The stone had fallen and been buried over time, only to reappear centuries later, still carrying details from a game that was never just a game. Number 5. The Cyrus Cylinder. This small clay object doesn't look particularly cool, but its influence reaches far beyond its size. Known as the Cyrus Cylinder, it dates back to the time of Cyrus the Great, the Persian ruler who conquered Babylon in 539 BCE. The text inscribed on its surface outlines a decree allowing displaced people to return to their homelands and rebuild. That alone has earned it a reputation as one of the earliest examples of a statement on human rights, though that interpretation is still debated. What draws particular attention is how closely it aligns with accounts found in religious texts, and especially the story of exiled people being allowed to return and restore their temples. Whether seen as a political strategy or a genuine policy, the message is clear. Control wasn't maintained through force alone. There was an effort to restore order by granting autonomy. That approach left a mark, one that continues to shape how this ancient artifact is understood today. Number 4. The bronze statues of San Casciano dei Bagni. Well, now this one is a mind-blowing discovery. Beneath layers of mud and mineral-rich water in Tuscany, a collection of bronze statues lay hidden for centuries, preserved almost perfectly by the environment that concealed them. When they were finally uncovered, the level of detail was striking. These weren't rough figures. They were refined, carefully crafted representations of gods, children, and individuals, all placed together in what appears to have been a sacred thermal site. The location itself matters. Hot springs were often associated with healing, and it's likely these statues were offerings, left behind by people seeking relief or protection. Their preservation feels almost accidental, yet without those conditions, much of their detail would have been lost. What stands out isn't just the craftsmanship, but the context. These objects weren't discarded, they were intentionally deposited. That suggests belief, ritual, and a sense of connection to the place itself. Even after centuries, that purpose hasn't completely faded. Number 3. The Roman Temple beneath St. Daniel's Church. Sometimes the ground beneath a familiar place holds a completely different story. In Croatia, beneath a quiet church dedicated to St. Daniel, scans revealed an unexpected Roman temple buried below. The structure is large, with defined walls and a layout that suggests it once stood as a central gathering point. This wasn't a minor building. It likely played a significant role in the life of the ancient city that once existed there. What makes the discovery more striking is how long it went unnoticed. Archaeological work had been carried out in the area for decades, yet this remained hidden until modern technology made it visible. That contrast says a lot about how much still lies beneath places we think we understand. The temple's exact function isn't fully confirmed, but its scale suggests importance. It also raises the possibility that more structures are waiting nearby, just beyond detection, layered beneath centuries of construction and change. Number 2. The Saint-Jacques necropolis in Paris. We have seen cities grow, evolve, and reinvent themselves. But every now and then, the ground gives something back. Beneath the busy streets of Paris, during routine construction, workers uncovered something far older than the city people recognize today. The Saint-Jacques necropolis, hidden for centuries, revealed around 50 graves dating back to the Roman era, when Paris was still known as Lutetia. These weren't just empty resting places. Men, women, and children were buried here, many with personal belongings, jewelry, small objects, pieces of daily life carefully placed beside them. One discovery, though, carries a deeper weight. A coin was found inside the mouth of one individual, a detail tied to ancient beliefs about the afterlife, where it served as payment for a final journey. Now, moments like this don't just uncover bones. They uncover thoughts, fears, and beliefs. The city above keeps moving, unaware, while beneath it, history waits quietly, holding stories that were never meant to last this long. Now let's move to Number 1. The mysterious Sarmatian scarab. Pendant. Scarab symbols are usually tied to ancient Egypt, so finding one in Ukraine feels out of place at first. Yet that's exactly what happened when archaeologists uncovered a small pendant shaped like the familiar beetle. Dating back around 2,000 years, it's linked to the Sarmatian culture, a group not typically associated with Egyptian traditions. That's where things get interesting. The material itself, Egyptian faience, points toward a connection, either through trade or cultural exchange. This wasn't something made locally from scratch. It had a journey. Scarabs carried strong symbolic meaning, often tied to rebirth and the afterlife. They were worn during life and buried with the dead, serving as both decoration and protection. Finding one so far from its usual context suggests ideas and objects traveled farther than we sometimes assume. It also raises quieter questions about how beliefs shift when they move across cultures. Even a small object can carry a long story. If you found this video fascinating, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe. Thanks for staying till the end, and we'll catch you in the next one.